Good evening. Welcome to Right Talk with Mike Lee. I want to welcome my guest this evening is a good friend of mine. We've been associating with each other for several years now. It must be about 6 or 7 years now.
Yes, sir.
It's my brother Rob Muhammad from the Nation of Islam.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you,
Good
man.
to see you. Good to
and
be
I want
seen.
to talk today. I want to talk about something that's very, very dear to me, and I want to start off by just reciting the preamble to the Constitution. The preamble to the Constitution reads, "We, the people of the United States," we'll talk about who the people are in a minute. "We, the people of the United States, in order to 1, form more perfect union, 2, establish justice, 3, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessing of liberty to ourselves and our posterity." Now, these gentlemen who wrote the preamble to the Constitution were mainly white men.
Mm-hmm.
And when they say "we the people," they weren't talking about me. They weren't talking about Robert. They weren't talking about women. They weren't talking about slaves.
Right.
But then I wonder about when they say we the people. I know that it is said that the first person that died during the Revolutionary War in 1776 was a black man named Crispus Attucks.
That's right.
And, you know, I think there's a black man on the back of the $2 bill too.
That's what they say.
I got to read up on him. I had a $2 bill. I gave it to my son.
Yes, sir.
But there was a black gentleman there. But my thing is, and I consider myself a common sense conservative, which my thing is, I don't believe that this government is going to be overthrown. So I believe it's best to try to work within the structure as best you can and try to achieve the results that are positive and beneficial to my people.
Yes,
And in that regard, I believe that my thing is, live up to what you said in the Constitution says. We the people of the United States, one, in order to form a perfect union. Two, to establish justice. Justice is where we have a problem.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
And my thing, I just believe that they should be, there should be, if that's the first they want to make sure this place is not overthrown.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing they want to do after making sure we have a nation or civilization is to have justice. And so justice should be a number one priority.
That's right.
And it's a number one priority in terms of oppression as far as the black community is concerned. Right. It seems so to me. I mean, there's a matter I'm working on now. I read an article in the paper recently in San Marcos.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, and we're talking about these guys wrote this in 1776.
Right.
In 2019, we're still having problems.
Right.
And I believe that this particular president that we have is he's done some symbolic things that were encouraging to me in the sense that he pardoned Jack Johnson, which should have happened a long time ago, and which I think should have been done by a so-called black president. We had to wait till a so-called redneck racist to pardon Jack Johnson for marrying a white woman.
Yes, sir.
Because it used to be illegal. Interracial marriage was not approved by the Supreme Court until I think it was Loving versus Virginia. It's long, this is like in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend in Beaumont, a guy who happened to be white, who was a minister married to a black woman. He had to fight to get a license to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a matter I'm dealing with now where a guy was in a relationship with a white woman. And I always caution guys about that kind of activity because what happened to Jack Johnson in early 1900s
Right.
is still a problem today.
That's right.
And I see it today in not the prosecution, I mean the persecution of Rodney Reed.
Right.
Now I'm not up to speed on know all the facts about it, but what little do I do know, I've gleaned from the news.
Right.
And this is though it's like I understand the prosecution is claiming that he didn't know the woman. It was a rape murder.
Right.
And this is still that Hillary Clinton super predator mentality.
Right.
And in Central Texas, one of the first things I did when I moved here, when I moved to Austin, was I like to know the temperature of what's happening where I am.
Right.
And so I read about the lynching history of Central Texas.
That's right.
And one of the last lynchings that occurred in this station occurred, I believe, in Waco.
Okay.
But even more recently than that, was that James Byrd who was dragged to
Yes,
death.
sir. Yes, sir.
And this wasn't
Texas.
20 years. This is not 20. This is not like a lifetime ago. This is
Right.
during my lifetime.
That's right.
Now I grew up in basically an all black community that was surrounded by all white communities. I grew up during the end of segregation. But so my life and what my experiences have been shaped by the experiences that one has in a somewhat segregated society until supposedly after 1954.
Right.
But the 54 Brown versus Board of Education decision was nice words, and I've always disputed about laws because laws just invite litigation. They don't always solve problems.
Right.
It can create as many problems as they solve. But what I really want to talk about this evening is the Rodney Reed situation. I believe that Robert is very well informed and versed on that subject. You spoke recently at a rally, I believe,
Yes, sir.
here in Austin, and so I know there were some reports that were made in that I heard on the news. I believe there's a clip that I'd like to show to begin our discussion.
Yes, sir.
The retired law enforcement officer says with Rodney Reed's execution date coming up next month, he wanted to speak up because he says he believes that Stacey Stites' then fiance and Giddings police officer Jimmy Fennell was the killer.
I was down at the funeral home when Stacey was down there.
Stacey Stites' body was laid out at a Giddings funeral home in April of 1996, where lots of law enforcement officers had come to pay their respects.
I was standing in the hallway, and Jimmy Frizzell come up beside me.
One of the new witnesses was there too. He did not want his face or name on TV.
He said something about she was buried in her white wedding dress.
It was what the witness says Stites' fiance Jimmy Fennell said next that shocked him.
He said something to me to the effect she more or less got what she deserved.
That conversation is part of this letter to the governor asking Greg Abbott to grant a 30-day reprieve and commute his sentence. Rodney Reed was convicted of her rape and murder in 1998. His defense argued he and Stites were having an affair and that Fennell had motive and opportunity to kill her.
Because I wasn't expecting that from him. You know, he wasn't showing any sympathy, hurt, or anything for her.
Fennell later served 10 years in prison for the kidnapping and improper sexual conduct with a woman in his custody in Georgetown. But that conversation in 1996 stayed with the witness.
That's why it makes me think that Rodney didn't do this.
And when he heard Reed is scheduled to be executed on November 20th,
when they said his execution date, I said, I have got to say something to somebody.
one of 3 11th hour new witnesses to speak out.
It's been in my mind all the whole time.
Now, I did reach out to the governor's office, but there is no word on the status of this request. Again, Reed's execution is scheduled for November 20th. Live in front of the governor's mansion, Adele Uchida, CBS Austin News.
Now what a lot of what I know is gathered pretty much from this report, but I think, Robert, you have some more information you can share with us about this situation.
We have a little information. We have been in support of the Reed family for nearly 20 years. We've been participating in their annual gatherings and the campaign to raise awareness for his wrongful conviction and his impending execution date for nearly 20 years. And we've supported Mrs. Sandra Reed and their brother, Rodney's brother, Roger Reed, in their fight. And before even then, his father, who passed a few years back. And so I've seen the family over the years go through transition in their lives as they attempt to expose some information that was never brought to trial, some information that was never brought to light, in an effort to exonerate and to free our brother Rodney Reed. There are many different facts that have come forward. There are many different developments in the past few years, and the developments are so noteworthy that you have entertainers, you have politicians, you have individuals of consequence in our society that are now taking notice to Rodney Reed's plight and his, we believe, his unjust or conviction, and now his impending execution date. Noteworthy such as Dr. Phil. He ran 2 episodes highlighting Rodney's case. You had noteworthy such as Kim Kardashian West that has signed on and is appealing to Governor Abbott to reconsider a new trial and to stay the execution. You even have the Dallas Mavericks owner, Mark Cuban, that is weighing in. So you have many people who, as they're being exposed to this information, that they're saying, wow, something is missing. This sounds like something that happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so you even have a cadre of, when we look at this, a lot of people talk about how at the root of this is racism.
Yeah.
But many of the people that have signed on to support the Reed family over the years are white people themselves. And so even they recognize that there is something wrong. So some of the information that has come out as of recent is that the murder weapon has never been tested for DNA evidence, which was supposedly a belt. At that time, they reported that they didn't have the technology to test it for certain aspects of DNA evidence, but now the technology is present. The state's 3 forensic experts have admitted on record to errors in their testimony, which led to Rodney's conviction and death sentence. In fact, the medical examiner, Roberto Bayardo, made a statement August the 13th, 2012, and he said that he talked about the time of death. He said if the prosecuting attorneys had advised him that they intended to use his time of death estimate as a scientifically reliable opinion, he would have advised them not to do so. Then one of the things, because you talked about interracial relationships. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look into the story, Stacey Stites was engaged to be married to Mr. Fennell, and it was known in certain circles in the city of Bastrop that she was having an affair with Rodney Reed. Mm-hmm. They kept it under wraps as much as they could, but now there are individuals. Her cousin came forward and said that she was told by Stacey that she was having an affair with Rodney and one of her co-workers. So this idea of rape, the medical examiner said this. He said the spermatozoa I found in Miss Stites could have been deposited days before her death. And he said, as far as the sexual assault is concerned, there is no indication that the spermatozoa that was placed there, it couldn't have been placed there in any other fashion other than consensual. So, and this is what the prosecutors hung their hat on, is that this, like you said, this idea of this burly big black man, they demonized him, and he took advantage of this beautiful, pure white woman and raped her and killed her. Renowned and forensic pathologists, including Michael Baden, MD, Werner Spitz, Leroy Riddick, and Cyril Welch, have all concluded that Reed's guilt is medically and scientifically impossible. The prosecution's only forensic evidence linking Reed to the crime was semen taken from Stites' body, which was attributed to the consensual relationship between them. Another aspect of evidence that's recently come out, Rodney Reed and Stacey Stites were having consensual relationships, and one of her cousins confirmed that, as well as a co-worker. And then, according to the clip that you played, we now have witnesses that have come forward that have said Mr. Fennell have made certain remarks that would indicate that he had intentions on hurting her if he found out that she was having an affair with someone.
And this is a law enforcement officer who had done time for violating the law himself, right?
Yes, and actually on the Dr. Phil show, the individual that was responsible for bringing him on charges was present there, and she recounted, she recited her story and her plight, and she mentioned that she and her significant other were having an altercation. She called the police. Fennell showed up with 2 other officers, and he signaled to the other 2 officers to take her significant other away. He put her in the vehicle, took her out into a remote place, and raped her. And then told her that I'm coming to your house tomorrow, and if you call 911, I'll be there to take care of you. And so, but some kind of way she found the strength days later to make that call and to report her sexual assault, which resulted in him being charged, tried, and convicted and doing 10 years in prison. And there were other allegations from other individuals that helped to put him away. So one of the interesting things that in 1998, when he was arrested, when he was convicted nearly 22 years ago, is that Reed, a black man, was found guilty of murdering Stites, a white woman, by an all-white jury. So this idea that you can get a fair trial by your jury, a jury of your peers, in modern times is still not accurate and it's still not true for many of us. And so some of the interesting things that came out, and you're an attorney, so you know some of this. Both Rodney Reed and Mr. Fennell were given polygraph tests, and the polygraph questions were short and to the point. Did you kill Stacey Stites? Do you know anything about the murder of Stacey Stites? It's interesting because Mr. Reed passed his, but Mr. Fennell failed his polygraph test. But we know those results are not admissible in court. But there are many different things. There are 3 forensic experts, including the individuals that I just mentioned. They talked about the time period. The original medical examiner has stated that his findings regarding evidence of rape were either wrong or misinterpreted. And so if this is the state's star witness and he's saying it was wrong or misinterpreted, now they got to take responsibility for that. But there are some other things that kind of piqued they kind of raised red flags, and they mentioned this years ago that there were 2 beer cans found at the scene of the crime. They tested positive for the DNA of at least 1 police officer. This test was not reported to the defense at the time of the trial. There was, I think, 2 to 3 individuals that were to serve as Rodney's alibi, that they were with him during the time of Stacey's death.
They disappeared, I bet.
And they even, to the point to where they even went to work together the next day, and they were never called to the witness stand. The defense attorney had less than 2 months to prepare for this type of case. Of course, it was a public defender. The police did not search Stacey and Fennell's apartment, the last place she was known to be alive. Also, the police released the truck Stacey was driving the night of the murder to Fennell, who sold the truck a few days after she was murdered. Fennell also is reportedly to have closed a bank account that he shared with Stacey just before her body was found. So there are many different red flags. And again, I'm no attorney, but as I will repeat the words of Dr. Field, there are many proponents, many individuals that support the death penalty and are against the death penalty. But whether you're for it or against it, they all say that you should never execute an innocent person. So here we are in 2019. The now district attorney has given the date. I believe it comes from the district attorney, November the 20th, and now it's out of his hands. It's in the higher courts, and the only way this execution can be stayed is if the governor of the state of Texas, Governor Gregory Abbott, can give a stay of execution, and so we can continue to fight for a new trial for Rodney Reed. And so there's many different individuals around the country that are now weighing in on this, and there are many different eyes that are on Texas right now to see if Texas is going to be and uphold the great history, the great engraved history of white supremacy and racism, or will it detach itself from this ugly history and begin to renew and to restore and to write a new history based on freedom, justice, and equality.
Now, when I moved to Texas back in 1974, people in Ohio, they thought I was crazy. Why you got any racists down there? I said, man, they racist here in Cincinnati. I say racism begins at the southern border of Mexico all the way to Canada. Race all in between is happening.
That's right.
I say, I don't mind going to tell you because they probably let me know. And if I know, you okay? All right. It's like life is like a chess game.
Right.
Okay, that's over. That's like that over there.
That's right.
So I know how to deal and how to negotiate around it.
Right.
Better than if it's there and I don't know.
Right.
I'd rather know.
That's right.
But I think I always say, hold the founding fathers to their damn word.
That's right.
And when they say we the people, I know you didn't mean me, but things changed and it came to mean and to include me.
Right. I
had a beef with with a so-called liberal professor when I was in college about after Civil War and the 13, 14, 15 amendments were passed. I said, man, let's just invite more problems. They just say, hey, man, everybody out here, and call it even and let it go. No, we have to define citizenship. We have to do this. I said, you just inviting questions.
Right.
And so you had Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, said separate but equal.
Right.
Separate but equal facilities okay. And then 54, they said, nah, separate facilities never going to be equal. So they mix it up.
Right.
Just get rid of all this stuff.
Right.
Mix it up, sort of. Because I worked on school desegregation cases in Dallas, and worked on a school desegregation case in Jefferson County in Beaumont.
Mm-hmm.
In 1982, I was in 1982 in federal court. They talking about white flight. I think, my God, most places whites have flown. They're on the way back.
Right.
It's like here.
Right.
They never flew here.
Right.
He just drove us out.
Right.
Taxed us out of
Yes,
existence.
He taxes out.
Taxed us out of town.
You know, it's amazing because, you know, I believe we could be at this generation's tipping point in America. Lyndon Baines Johnston commissioned the Kerner Commission back in 1967, I believe, to do a study and find out why there was all of these uprisings and riots in the black communities around the country at that time period. And the report that they came back with, they could have saved some money, and they could have asked me, even though I wasn't born yet, they could have asked me. But the report that came back was that there are two Americas, one black, one white, separate and unequal.
Right.
And so this idea of integration is still but an idea, because laws, like you said, hold the forefathers accountable. So these laws on paper are laws, but the individuals that apply them,
there's still no fair and equal treatment.
That's right. And so we're talking about in 2019 where people are looking and they're saying, and now what's happening is they're putting weight and pressure on the DA's office in Bastrop County, and the DA has this light shined on him, although he was not the district attorney at the time, but he sits in a seat in the office.
He still has an opportunity to do what's right.
That's right. And so his position and posture is that we've made strides, and Bastrop County is not racist, it's not this, it's not that. However, the arrogance that emanates from that office by not allowing his family the opportunity to prove his innocence by way of
which he shouldn't have to prove anyway.
Right. And so because you're talking about somebody's life. So if there's any doubt whatsoever, you don't take an individual's life. You know, even if it costs the community money to stand behind the family and say, okay, well, let's bring this new evidence forward. Whatever it costs, we'll pull on the citizenship of the country, those that support, and we'll pay for it.
Now,
right?
Now, Robert, I've heard it said that it is better that one guilty any guilty man might go free. Guilty men may go free than to execute an innocent man. And my thing is, just keep your word. Keep your word.
Well, we know how that worked out.
If you say justice, there's a reason that the civil justice lady has a blindfold on. She's blindfolded. She can't see what color you are. She can't see how much money you got. She can't see what car you driving. She can't see where you live, what your house looks like, or anything.
Well, that's what we believe, but in the way we're being treated, maybe she just can't see us at all. maybe we're being ignored. And when it comes to keeping a word, if we look at the history of this great nation and ask the Native Americans to come to the stand, and we talk about the peace treaties that were laid out and how they were broken, if we talk about freeing of the slaves, but making an amendment that would make you, if you are a lawbreaker at that time, a perpetual slave because you ran afoul of the law. And we know in Jim Crow South, if you walked on the sidewalk and you laughed in the face of a white man and not in the laughing barrel, you were breaking the law. So so they're keeping their word to an aspect of the citizenship, but they're keeping their word because they didn't intend on any of us being citizens. So that's why we have to amend certain aspects.
The extent to which they keep the word depends on the color of your skin.
That's right.
Which it shouldn't.
That's right. And so here we are in 2019.
That's my thing.
Man.
That's my thing. We're talking about 2019. We're talking about something that was said almost 300 years ago.
That's right.
And we still dealing with the same problem.
Well, unfortunately, we have come to the point to where we have to see this construct and the system for what it is. I attended over the years many rallies, many gatherings, many speeches, and individuals talk about fixing the system. And the only way you can fix the system is fix it from the inside. You can't be on the outside of the system and fix it. When it really comes down to it, that the system is never broken. It's just that we misunderstand what the system is designed to do.
It's the people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if I got a vehicle outside that I traveled here, right? If I cut it open, right, and put a couch in it and put it in my living room and put a television in front of it, I can say, well, this is a couch. Well, somebody may come in and say, man, that's not a couch, that's a vehicle, right? And you may say, well, no, it's a vehicle, but it's broken. It's broken because you're now making it a couch, right? But if it's a vehicle and it's taking me to and fro and I'm trying to make it a couch and say, well, this ain't operating as well as a couch, that's because it wasn't designed to be a couch. It was designed to be a vehicle to transport you. And so when we look at the law, it has never really yielded those that have been unable to harness true power in accordance with the construct of this system. And it can be done to a certain extent, but it really was not designed to give us power. And so the only way we can get power is we have to harness it ourselves and look at this system, come to the realization that it needs to be replaced by a better system that will secure or that will ensure justice for black, brown, white,
no matter who
Asian,
you are,
no matter the race, creed, class, or color. But we are now extremely close to the time in which they are set for our brother to be executed, and so we're working day and night. His family is crisscrossing the state. They're consistently on social media posting new stories, new developments. Individuals like Lily Hughes and the campaign to end the death penalty, individuals like that have been supporting the family for the entire 22 years he was incarcerated. Individuals that are now coming. We are honored to announce that the black clergy, the black church, has united, and they're going to have a press conference tomorrow announcing their support of Rodney Reed and his family and sending a resounding message, free Rodney Reed, to the governor on tomorrow at 12 noon at Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church under the leadership of Galen Clark. And so there are many different people that are signing on. And the thing that kind of took wind out of my sail on last week or 2 weeks ago is I was in a conversation with a community activist from this area of Central Texas, and she told me, she said, well, Brother Muhammad, She said, I didn't know anything about this brother until you made a posting on Facebook. And I said, wow, because it's been over 20 years and I've been engaged with them, I know at least 16, 17 years. And so for individuals that are fighting for equity in our communities to not even know about the plight of Rodney Reed concerns me. So I've not only supporting the family, but I'm going personally on a campaign to get this information out. And so we've been blessed to make ourselves available for many different radio, television, and internet blog talks and vlog talks in the next 2 weeks.
And my thing, Robert, is this isn't really an opportunity to, darn it, do something right.
Yes, sir.
Do what's right.
That's right.
Period.
That's right. So I said at the last gathering that I attended at the Capitol that there was the great stars and bars, the stars and stripes on the right-hand side of the street and the Texas flag on the left-hand side of the street and the Texas flag on the right, and they were flapping, and it caught my attention as I was thinking of what to say, and I said that Governor Abbott has the opportunity to solidify or to go down in history as the governor of Texas that broke from the racist history and the underbelly of this great country
that cut the crap.
By making a decision.
That cut the crap.
And he can go down in history as the friend of freedom, justice, and equality and all that seek it by making this decision to stay the execution, to use his political capital in his office to say, we're not going to do this. We're not standing for it. Give this man a fair chance and give him a fair day in court. And so let him use all of the resources that everybody else gets to prove his innocence, or you prove his guilt. Yeah. And some people say, well, that's already happened.
You prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
And it's all kind of doubt out there.
That's right. And so you don't take an individual's life when there is doubt. In fact, we can't even rely on the death penalty in America because of the underbelly and the undercurrent of racism itself. And all of the other isms that exist. If you get rid of that, you still have sexism. You get rid of that, you still have many different other things that we have to deal with. And so we live in a society that's not perfect. So when we live according to those type of archaic ways that are not supported by righteous living in a righteous society, you can't make absolute decisions like that. Because we live in a society that cheerleads certain behaviors that can lead to certain things that will cause you to be tried, and convicted, and given the death sentence. And I'll say this, that years ago, when I first engaged in this type of work and type of act, I don't even remember how I got involved, but there was a young man named Kenneth Foster that he's from San Antonio, and he was convicted of murder, and he was given the death penalty under what they call the law of parties. In the state of Texas, there's a law called the law of parties, and if you engage in a crime and somebody gets killed and you are with them engaged in the crime, you all can get the death sentence. So he was driving a vehicle. The other two occupants or three occupants, they got out the vehicle, robbed someone, killed someone in the process. He got back in the vehicle, drove off. Right. All of them got the death sentence. And so we, a few years ago, was able to, I can't remember which governor it was. It may have been Perry, Bush. I can't remember which one it was. More likely it was Perry. But they gave him a stay of execution, just hours. I'll never forget it. His wife called me on the phone just hours before he was to be executed, and she was screaming. I could barely make out what she was saying, but in a nutshell, she was saying they saved his life. He got a stay of execution, and he's still doing a life sentence, and he's trying to get that. He got the death sentence commuted to life, and he's still trying to get that reduced as well. But You know, in America, black males in particular,
Yeah.
we don't have the opportunities to make mistakes that other people can make and be able to say later on in life, yeah, I went down that road, but I thank God I had an opportunity because somebody invested in me and I made a mistake and I'm here to repair with my community the mistake that I made. And, you know, it's a terrible thing. Now, I mentioned this the other day to some people. O.J. Simpson,
Uh-huh.
right? In America, we've always been guilty until proven innocent. And so here we have a clear-cut case, whether you like O.J. Simpson or not, whether you believe he did it or not. In the court of law, he was acquitted by with the help of the great Johnny Cochran, right? And so, but my point is that
Robert,
yes, sir.
go ahead. I saw there was a something I saw on TV. It showed the reaction of white people to
Right.
O.J.'s decision and the reaction of black people. Black people cheering, white people like.
Totally different. But that shows you that Kerner Commission report still exists today. Two Americas, one white, one black, separate and unequal. But so even though he was acquitted, the majority of individuals, black and white, that I know of, says, man, you know he did that. You know he did it. But he still had to pay, even though he was acquitted.
Yeah.
They got him in civil court and took basically his life from him. The life and the lifestyle and the quality of life that he knew because they made him responsible. Now, I'm not an attorney. I was acquitted for the murder, but I'm made responsible, so I have to repair civilly. And so he began to spiral downward because all of this stuff was taken from him. And everywhere he goes, like a scarlet letter, he wears a G for guilty, even though he was acquitted. And so, and I believe because of that, you know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that injustice unbalances the mind. And so I believe that after that, he started spiraling downward, which led him to the crimes that he was charged and convicted of. I think it was in Vegas, at the time when he wanted to get some of his memorabilia and his stuff back. But I believe that had that not happened, we wouldn't have seen that O.J. Simpson. We would have always seen that one in them old school Hertz commercials that was running through the airport. But we in America.
You know, this old Rodney Reed deal reminds you. Have you seen the movie Marshall?
Have I seen the
If
movie?
you haven't,
Yes.
if you haven't,
Yes, sir.
it's that.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yes, sir.
And in that movie, the guy had relations with a white woman, and she didn't want to own up to that it was consensual.
Yeah. That happens a lot, even now in 2019, especially in some of these backwoods places. And so, you know, I grew up in Austin. I was born and raised. I'm 46 years old. And everybody I grew up with, there are two places that has the reputation for being the most racist in this area. One is Williamson County, and the other is Bastrop County.
Bastrop?
Yes, sir. So it was known to us growing up in Austin, Texas in the 80s and the 90s that you did not go to Bastrop and act a fool, and you didn't go to Williamson County and act a fool. And so as we are now populating the southern
Southern
borders
Southern
of Williamson. Yeah. So now that, you know, that's changing because, you know, we're populating that area, so hopefully it will change. But I mean, this is known. It is a reality where we live, and a lot of times we are lulled to sleep because of this liberalism that we experience here in the city of Austin, this so-called liberalism
that they claim,
that is claimed. And so it lulls the individuals to sleep. And like you said, and Malcolm said the same thing. He said, I'd rather for a person to show me where they at. So I understand, you know. And so, but when you come up and you pat me on the back and you tell me that you're my friend and I'm your friend and I'm with you, guy, I'm with you, buddy. No, I would rather for an individual to say, you know what, I believe that you are N-word and that you're this and that you're that, and I never wanted to live among you all, so on and so forth. I know where that person stands.
I'm cool with
It's
that.
clear. No problem. You know, but the individual that feigns respect and says that he respects you, he loves you,
and likes you,
and he likes you, and that what's mine is yours, and yours is mine, and I fight for your cause, and you fight for mine. But at the end of the day, you're stabbing me in the back, and you're making deals behind my back that will cripple me and cripple people that look like me. Well, no, and that's what I'm saying. You know, I love Austin. Austin is home for me. I've never lived anywhere else. I've traveled to a lot of places, but I've never lived anywhere else. But for Austin to be this liberal place, and for it to be voted over and over one of the best places to live, one of the best places to start a business, one of the best places to retire, the fastest growing city in the country, or always in the top 5%, the top 5, the top 10. But the undercurrent or the underbelly of that is you got other reports that come out and say, yeah, among the top 10 cities, the fastest growing, Austin is the only one that has a dwindling African-American or black population. Among it being one of the best places to live, the best places to retire, the best places to start a business, it is the most economically segregated city in the country. You know, when you start reading and parallel looking at these statistics, you say, how is it that we couldn't make the progress that we thought that we could make, when at one point, not only did we have a Latino police chief, Art Acevedo, but we had Michael McDonald as the assistant city manager and assistant police chief. We have in District 1, the constable, we have a black constable, we have a black county judge, we have a black county commissioner. When we put together the police monitor's office, you know, they had black people in there. Everywhere you looked, it seemed like we were represented somewhere in key positions. The head of human resources for the city of Austin, a black man, then a black woman, right? So it looks like in liberal Austin that this is one of the most liberal places that you can be, right? That you can live in. It is, in fact, the utopia that you've been looking for. Yet, when they move to single-member districts, now we don't have the population to really vote and put the people in office and hold them accountable. The next frontier is the public school system. People are fighting and talking about fighting to keep the traditional black schools or the schools that were heavily populated with black people open. But now, many of us live outside the city limits. So when they finally give us an opportunity and they say, you know what, you're right. We do need to put more money in these schools. We don't need to close the doors of all these schools. We're going to pump more money into these schools. We're going to do this. We're going to rebuild the program. We won't be populating them. And as a sign, they tearing down the structure of Old Anderson High School, right? So, you know, although people are looking at Bastrop County and saying, that's a racist place, drive the speed limit and hurry up and get through there and don't stop unless you're going to Buc-ee's to use the bathroom or something like that. But Austin is not far off. In fact, in some cases, Austin is worse.
Because you don't know. You don't expect it. It's unexpected. So,
man, we're grateful for the opportunity to come here and just kind of share some of the information. But we are encouraging individuals to call the governor's office, to email the governor's office, to write the governor's office. We're encouraging them to pull on their state representatives and some of their local government politicians. We're asking them to move on the DA's office there in Bastrop County, although it is out of his hands. But he could make statements that could move the governor to reconsider, because the governor is acting on behalf of his office and because the conviction was done there. So anything that we can do, we are right now currently in the planning stages of a statewide day of action. And so there are many different people, many different organizations. But what my plans are November the 9th at 2 p.m. there will be a rally and demonstration at the governor's mansion with the Reed family. And one of the goals that I have is to get some black people there.
Yeah.
You know, when
Yeah.
we go to these places, we
Yeah.
don't see a lot of black faces. And in a lot of instances, when the Nation of Islam shows up, we are the only group that's headed or that's tried and true for and by black people that are present. So we encourage the churches, we encourage the fraternities and sororities, we encourage all to come out and support the Reed family in their effort and their campaign to save the life of our brother, because if he's executed, then that means it can be, right now, it can be any one of us tomorrow.
It's not, it's, to me, it represents an opportunity to correct a serious failure
Yes, sir.
of not just Bastrop, but it's emblematic to me of what happens nationwide.
That's right.
And it's a chance to change that daggone atmosphere.
That's right.
To change the narrative.
Right. And Texas can be the catalyst for change. You know, you got to remember this, that Texas was its own nation.
I always say, so goes Texas, so goes the nation.
That's right.
I've said that since I got here in 1974.
That's right. And so, you know, the appeal is to the governor to, if he has any inkling of respect for justice, that he he's already, you know, he's being bombarded, you know, left and right with individuals that are in support of Rodney Reed, and I'm sure he's being bombarded and those on the other side as well. And so, but when I look at Miss Sandra Reed, she, to me, in my humble opinion, is not just Sandra Reed, the individual fighting for her son, Rodney Reed, the individual, but she represents an idea. A representation
represents an idea
of the plight and the history of black families in America since the soles of our feet have touched the shores of this great United States of America and what we've been through. And when you see her and you look into her eyes and you look into her face, you see pain, but you also see resilience. Mm-hmm. You see hurt and you see pain, but you see fortitude. You see hope and you see faith. And so she represents to me the over 400 years of suffering, but the over 400 years of hope and faith that the black community has always had, that we can overcome the position and the condition that we've been put in here in the United States of America. And so she deserves to be supported in her effort to free her son, because she represents all of the mothers throughout the history of this great nation, who their children, or their sons in particular, that have been unfair and unjustly incarcerated and now facing death.
I think we in Austin have an opportunity to do something
Yes, sir.
important and
Absolutely.
significant, and to make a statement. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show to talk about this particular issue, and to enlighten me and perhaps others on it.
Yes, sir.
And as a matter of fact, it crossed my mind. Next week's show, I should talk about it. I want to talk about it until as long as it's necessary.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's what I do, because as you know, going way back, Robert, I believe in doing what's right. I consider myself a common sense conservative.
Yes, sir.
You know, when I've tried cases, I tell the jurors, don't leave your common sense at home. Bring your common sense in here. And if your common sense if you look at what's happening with Rodney Reed from a common sense standpoint, you know, something just isn't right.
That's right.
Something doesn't smell right. It doesn't pass the smell test.
Right.
And where you have experts involved in the case saying, hey, wait, I'm not too sure you used that thing the wrong way. I didn't know you were going to use this like that.
Right.
And when you have the linchpin of the case is this black beast attacked this white woman,
Right.
that's 1700, 1800 stuff.
Right.
And that mentality is something that needs to be addressed, faced and addressed.
Right.
And I believe that this is an opportunity to begin to do that.
Right.
And I believe this guy in the White House is willing to. His partner Jack Johnson just sent me a slight signal. I said, oh, and I heard him say, he said, we have to stop just walking past people. He knows what and that's what a racist does. You don't exist in him. They walk right past you. You aren't there. Like when he said that, I said, oh, okay, he's real. He's honest.
Well,
and I don't care what there's some things you say I don't like, but I don't care what you say. My thing is what you do.
And
this is an opportunity for the governor of Texas to
right.
do what's right.
That's right. And anybody with any type of political sway should lean on the governor and persuade him and let him know, look, politically it wouldn't look good for this man with all of this evidence coming forward that was not allowed to be presented to save this man's life for him to be put to death. You are, in my opinion, you're committing political suicide.
To me, in the face of all these questions,
Right.
Not sophisticated, it's common sense questions. Oh, he raped her. No, he had a relationship with it. And that's the foundation. If the foundation is undercut, then you should re-examine the entire situation.
Right.
And to fail to address or reevaluate the entire situation is rotten. In my opinion,
sir.
That's just rotten and low down and just plain wrong.
That's right.
I think the other thing, but I told you about that movie Marshall. This is straight out of Marshall and straight out of 1850 something.
That's right.
Straight out of it.
And that's what is, and people that want to bring the district attorney's office and bring Bastrop County into the modern times are experiencing the weight of individuals that are saying, hey, look, this is a backwoods situation. This is a situation that looks like it happened in the 1800s. Give this man an opportunity to prove his innocence, a fair opportunity, I should say.
Which he shouldn't have to prove his innocence.
And so
period.
Well, you know they have to prove his guilt, but
prove it beyond reasonable doubt.
That's right. So and
don't cut corners.
So I'm reminded, as I know we're coming to an end of what Thomas Jefferson said, that he said, I tremble for my nation when I think that God is just and his justice does not sleep forever. So, but, if the hand of God is over this whole thing and you unjustly and unfairly put this man to death, then what type of sowing is being done for reaping in the future?
There's going to be some payment for that.
That's right.
And that's just right and just.
So we hope and we pray and we work for the best.
Yeah. And hope I can be able to get you back if I can before this thing is over with, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming on the show, Robert. It's just always good to have you here. And
Man,
I know when you're here, I have to bow up.
Man, it's an honor to always be here, man, to share your platform, to get information out to the people. And that's what it's about.
You know me, Robert. Just try to do what's right and get some right action and some right activity.
Yes, sir.
That's what this thing is about.
That's right.